Penguins looks like they're just going to play four corners in the D zone and run the clock out. As Calvert will pitch it to the T-Bird line. It was a heck of a journey. And those of you T-Bird fans who gutted it out through the doldrums of October and November, you were rewarded handsomely. This is not the way anybody wanted it to come to a conclusion. Game 5 here in Wilkes-Barre, but it does not diminish what a comeback story it was for this group. The 2022 T-Birds may have made it to the Calder Cup Finals and gone further in the postseason, but I'm not sure I personally have had more fun in 10 years at the helm here with the T-Birds than I did in the second half of this year. Steve Ott and his staff turned around a ship that badly needed someone who believed in them and someone who could instill a faith in them that they were, in Steve Ott's words, a adjective I won't repeat on the air, good hockey team. Aidan McDonough and Chris Wagner begin the handshake line. Aidan McDonough played his college hockey in Boston at Northeastern. Chris Wagner, a native Bostonian. They share a big embrace, and after what a war this was for 5 games, doesn't matter what side you end on, it's the tradition I hope never ever goes away in this sport. A show of respect. Two teams who can hate each other 1 minute and then have the utmost respect and appreciation for the battle they went through the next. Of course, this puts a bow on our season of coverage as well. There are far too many people to thank, and I always preface my final remarks of the season by saying I know I'm probably going to forget somebody in the midst of it all. Starts at the very top, though, in the T-Birds organization, led by our wonderful 30-something person ownership group. I never know the number at any given moment. Everybody on the T-Birds ownership group with roots in Western Mass and a pride for this city that I have said from the moment I arrived in Springfield 10 years ago. I don't know if I've ever been anywhere in this country where people are more appreciative of their roots than the people in Western Mass. Paul Picknelly and his group, without them, hockey isn't even in Springfield anymore. So, without them, none of the last 10 years happened. Nate Costa, our president, is a Springfield native as well. Someone who dreamed from a young age of running his own professional sports franchise, and darn it if there's anybody better in this league at doing it. Steve Ott, since joining this team, has been so much more than just a leader of young men in that dressing room. A man who spent his nearly entire pro career and the start of his coaching career at the highest level. But when he came down to the American Hockey League to take this job, to take this opportunity, he didn't view anybody as beneath him. Everybody was his equal. That includes the front office, that includes me, that includes all of our great creative and media department staff that have been along with us for every step of this postseason run. I'm going to go on record right now and say it, what so many of you have heard on 101 ESPN in St. Louis already. Steve Ott will coach an NHL team someday. I would be way more surprised if he did not. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. To our wonderful, wonderful broadcast partners at WHYN in Springfield, they've been with us from the very beginning. 10 seasons, well 10 years, 9 seasons worth of amazing memories, highs and lows that come from every hockey season. Kevin Johnson and his crew over there at iHeart, you all know him as our wonderful in-arena host, but he also leads the ship at WHYN, and without his support, so many of you might not have the opportunity to hear every game in and game out. Of course, broadcasters only have jobs because there are people who listen and people who care and put their blood, sweat, and tears into everything for their teams. And Springfield, for nearly 100 years, next year marks the 100th anniversary of when hockey began in Springfield. And for multiple generations, it has been not just a hobby and not just something that people like to watch and listen to, it's become their life. And there is something indescribable about that. And so without all of our listeners and viewers, my job doesn't exist. So I thank each and every one of you for all the care and support you give me and the rest of our organization. I see all the comments, good and bad, and I love how passionate everyone's opinions are. I don't care which way you are. I just love that you're passionate, because that's how it should be. And of course, in this playoff run, we have additional broadcast thanks to have to 101 ESPN and their crew. Mike Ryder, Bradford Bruns, who had been working the board the entire postseason here for us in St. Louis, for allowing this broadcast to take on a bigger audience. It figures we start to have a little technical glitch here near the very end. But we thank them. And also a thanks to Chris Kerber, the longtime voice of the Blues, who so proudly likes to reinforce to people that he began his pro hockey broadcasting career in Springfield and met his wife in Western Mass as well. Chris Kerber is responsible for so many of the great moments of my professional career, and that includes being able to go on 101 ESPN in St. Louis throughout this postseason run for the T-Birds. I hope these last 9 games have been as enjoyable for all of you listening and watching as they have been for me. You guys have one of the very best people to call the voice of the St. Louis Blues. And I hope you all appreciate that every single day that you have Chris Kerber at the helm. So all of these great T-Birds players, some who I have known for 5+ years. Hugh McGing has been along for the ride more than anybody in T-Birds history. And every guy who enters that dressing room, whether they're here for a week or whether they're here for a decade, I always tell people hockey players are so unique in the sense that they are among the most humble people you will ever meet. They have a job to do on the ice, and a very pressure-packed one at that. When you peel down the layers of the onion, you see just what great people they are off of the ice. And every single one of them should feel darn proud of what they accomplished this season. And while it ends in the division final round, as I've said a couple of times already, it does not diminish what was an unforgettable year of T-Birds hockey and a run from mid-April until Memorial Day that rivals the great run to the finals in 2022 in terms of excitement level and volume level that T-Birds hockey has ever had. And last but not least, the sentiment that's echoed by every player, every staff member, and every coach on that bench. I already mentioned how Wyatt Newpower's family has had to make so many sacrifices this year. Everybody's family. When you have a significant other, a son, a brother, a sister that works in professional sports, you're making sacrifices because you're not seeing them at certain times of the year. You're not necessarily seeing them over Thanksgiving or New Year's or Valentine's Day or Easter. Depending on how far you go, you might not even see them for Mother's Day or Father's Day. But boy, without that support, none of us would be in this field. None of us would be in sports altogether. Family first is a mantra that just about everybody I've ever come across in sports lives by. It's no different with me. So to my parents back only about an hour and a half from here in Wilkes-Barre, drove about an hour and a half down the road here in Pennsylvania. Deeply proud of my Pennsylvania roots, although a little bit bitter about how Pennsylvania is ending the season here tonight. For my parents back in Doylestown, Percy, Pennsylvania, who have believed in a young man's dream from the time he was probably in preschool and didn't try to steer him away from it. Can't thank them enough for it. Can't thank my wife Taryn enough, who puts up with me being on the road a lot more than she likes. But at the end of the day, allows me to live out a dream and allows so many, like so many other spouses, allows so many of these people working in sports to live out a dream as well. I forgot to shout out our great media crew who have been along for the ride with me throughout the course of the year. We are a small but a very dedicated staff. You hear my voice for the games, but everything you see on the video boards, on social media platforms, on websites, artwork, design, creative video touches, I can tell you I'm responsible for zero of that. Luke Pavlak, Lucas Armstrong, Sophia Mackett, and Shay Koharski on her second tour of duty with the T-Birds. Find me a better four-man group than that around this league, then you won't do it. And with that, we close the books on the 25-26 season of Springfield Thunderbirds hockey. It ends, unfortunately, with an 8-1 loss at the hands of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. We'll be back on the air with you in October, as we always are, for the 10th season of T-Birds hockey. It's year 11, and the celebration of 100 years of hockey in Springfield in Western Mass, one of the proudest cities in the American Hockey League, and the still headquartering city of the American Hockey League. The league has loved it enough that they have no intention of leaving Western Mass themselves. So for my board operators, Scott Harris tonight at WHYN. Shout-outs to Blaze, Leanne, and Tim as well, as they have taken their turns being part of this ride over the course of the season. 72 regular season games and 12 playoff games is what we got when all was said and done. 84 nights where we know that through thick and thin, our biggest T-Bird supporters were there with us every second of the way for the heartache and the jubilation. Until October, my name is Ryan Smith, thanking you all again for once again being part of Springfield Thunderbirds hockey 2025-2026. Until the fall, good night and good hockey.